After my husband passed away, I looked through his old phone. In the saved messages, I found chat records. Every single word mentioned another woman's name, Lara. If not for the family's interests, I wouldn't have even spared Selena a glance. Every time I touch her, I feel disgusted. You're the only one I love. I stared at those passionate and intimate words, feeling utterly devastated. When I opened my eyes again, I found myself back on the day our families discussed the arranged marriage. This time, I chose to let go willingly and decided to marry Luis, his aloof and reserved younger uncle. Chapter 1. In the living room, my father suddenly stood up from the sofa, shocked. Selena, are you sure you want to marry Luis's uncle? My tone was firm. Dad, I'm sure. After a long silence, he sighed. If you've already decided, then I'll inform Luis's grandfather. After my father left, Luis barged into my house, his urgency evident. Selena, the doctor said that if Lara doesn't undergo surgery soon, she might not survive the year. When are you going to donate your bone marrow to her? I stared at him coldly, memories of my past life flooding back. In my previous life, I had been persuaded by his sweet lies to undergo the bone marrow transplant. After the surgery, my body became so weak that I needed daily herbal medicine and could never have children. I sneered. Donating bone marrow would leave me in constant pain. Are you asking me to trade my life for hers? Luis frowned. Medicine is so advanced now. A bone marrow transplant is a minor surgery. It won't cost you your life. Besides, you're about to marry me. I'll arrange the best doctors for you. Lara relies on me completely. I have to take responsibility for her. You understand that, don't you? I suddenly burst out laughing. Why should I sacrifice myself to accommodate you? Just as I finished speaking, a commotion erupted outside. Lara barged in despite the attempts to stop her. With a pitiful expression, she said, "Sister, if you're unwilling to help me, I'll give up on treatment. Just please don't blame Luis." Luis immediately grew anxious. He rushed forward to support the frail-looking Lara. His expression darkened as he turned to me angrily. "Lara is this sick and still came to plead with you. Will you only be satisfied if you push her to the edge?" I tugged at the corners of my lips. I didn't push her into anything. My gaze unintentionally fell on the jade bracelet on Lara's wrist, and my heart clenched tightly. "Why is that bracelet with you?" This bracelet was a family heirloom passed down by my grandmother and was also a token of love between Luis and me. I stepped forward and grabbed her wrist. She trembled and stammered, this." Luis gave it to me. My heart instantly turned numb. In my previous life, I had been blinded by Luis's sweet words and foolishly agreed to the bone marrow transplant. I hadn't even noticed that the bracelet had been given away. It wasn't until I was bedridden from illness that I realized the bracelet was missing. When I asked him about it, he lied, saying he had sent it to a temple for blessings to dispel my illness. Luis grabbed my arm, his face turning cold. "You're so vicious. Getting physical over a mere bracelet with someone who's ill." His grip on my arm was so tight that I had no choice but to release Lara's wrist. He shoved me aside and carefully helped Lara, looking at me with disdain. "You, as the eldest daughter, only know how to bully others without a shred of compassion. How are you any different from a selfish, malicious woman?" After saying this, he bent down, picked up Lara, and left without looking back. Luis was an illegitimate child in the family. As a child, he was often ostracized by the other children in the family. Once, some cousins pushed him to the ground and threw stones at him. I shielded him with my small frame, enduring bruises and swelling on my arms and back without uttering a single word. From that day on, he stayed close to me, always by my side. If anyone bullied me, he would stand up for me. As we grew older, he confessed his love and promised he would marry no one but me. So, in my previous life, when our families discussed an arranged marriage, I agreed without hesitation. But if I had known his heart would change, I would never have clung to him. Fortunately, heaven gave me a second chance. This time, I chose to let go. From now on, we will part ways. Mountains and rivers between us, each to our own peace. Chapter 2. After that day, Lara's condition worsened. Luis stayed by her bedside day and night, taking meticulous care of her. He pulled every string he could, contacting experts for consultations. Bone marrow transplantation remained the best treatment option, and I was the most compatible match for Lara, the best candidate for the surgery. Luis had no choice but to plead with me again, but every time he came, I either turned him away or he left in defeat, met with my cold indifference. Meanwhile, my father had finalized the marriage arrangements with Luis's grandfather. As I busied myself with wedding preparations, Luis appeared before me again, perhaps sensing something unusual about me. He tried to win me over, saying, "Selena, today is our 5th anniversary. Didn't we agree to host a yacht party to celebrate? I've prepared everything just the way you like. Let me take you there, okay?" I sneered. The moment you gave our token of love to Lara, we were already over. That was my grandmother's heirloom. You won't trample on it. If it's not returned within 2 days, I'll take this matter to your grandfather. The yacht party was something I had begged him to organize last month. It was meant to celebrate our anniversary. But now, I no longer wanted to be entangled with him, nor did I believe he had any genuine intent to celebrate. Luis, however, thought I was throwing a tantrum. He suddenly grabbed my arm tightly. "Don't be stubborn. The party is already prepared. You have to come." His face was panicked and anxious. A wave of unease surged in my chest. I struggled desperately. "Luis, let go of me." He ignored my protests, dragging me from the deserted entrance to the roadside. Half pulling, half dragging, he shoved me into a black Bentley. The car sped away and soon arrived at the yacht dock. The massive yacht glittered with lights, but it sent chills down my spine. The deck was adorned with flowers and balloons, and a band played softly in the background. Socialites clung to well-dressed gentlemen, their gazes curious as Luis dragged me on board. I wrenched my arm free from his grip and glared at him angrily. "What exactly are you trying to do?" Luis frowned. "Trying to coax me, Selena. I planned this party especially to surprise you." He paused, then continued. "But Lara's condition cannot wait. I've brought in a top-notch medical team, and they're already in the medical cabin right now. Don't worry, after the surgery, I'll propose to you in front of everyone. Isn't this the unforgettable proposal you've always wanted?" My eyes widened in disbelief. "So, this is the surprise you've prepared for me? Your so-called unforgettable proposal is stealing my bone marrow in front of everyone? Luis, you're truly calculating to the last detail." Luis's expression darkened. "I arranged all of this to give you a chance to salvage your reputation. I don't want others to see you as a selfish, jealous woman who wouldn't save a life when it was in your hands. If something happens to Lara because of you, can you bear that guilt?" I said coldly, "No matter what you say, I won't agree. Don't even think about forcing me." Luis sneered, his face turning icy, and took a step closer. "It doesn't matter if you agree or not. I've already planned everything. I'll make it look like you drowned and died. Then I'll retrieve you quietly and proceed with the bone marrow transplant without anyone knowing." As soon as he finished speaking, Lara walked over, leaning weakly against Luis. Her eyes, however, filled with defiance as she looked at me. "Sister, Luis has already done so much for me. Don't be so cruel to him," she said softly. I was about to reply when a deep rumbling noise came from the bottom of the yacht. Immediately, the ship began to shake violently. Plates and cutlery clattered to the floor as panicked screams filled the air. I stumbled and almost fell, frantically grabbing the railing nearby. Lara, too, struggled to keep her balance, her eyes wide with fear as her body slid rapidly toward the edge of the deck. Luis, taking advantage of the chaos, gave me a hard shove. Then he lunged toward Lara, grabbing her arm and pulling her tightly into his embrace. Meanwhile, the deck beneath me began to crack from the violent shaking. I screamed for Luis with all my might, but he only stared at me coldly and, before my very eyes, pressed a tender kiss on Lara's forehead. Despair consumed me as I plummeted into the icy, bone-chilling ocean along with the shattered deck. The freezing seawater rushed into my nose and mouth. I struggled desperately, glimpsing the scene on the yacht above, Luis tightly holding Lara while looking at me with mockery in his eyes. Then, Luis began shouting my name, feigning panic, and directing the crew to search for me. It looked chaotic, but I knew he was deliberately stalling and sowing confusion. The once lively yacht party descended into chaos. The icy water engulfed me entirely, pulling me into the depths as I struggled. Hatred burned fiercely in my heart. Why is it that even in this second life, I cannot escape his harm? I won't accept this fate. Chapter 3. Just as despair was about to consume me, a figure leapt into the sea, swimming rapidly toward me. His arms moved powerfully through the water, leaving trails of white foam in his wake. As the ocean was on the verge of swallowing me whole, he grabbed my wrist firmly, wrapping his other arm tightly around my waist, and swam toward the surface with all his strength. Gradually, his breathing grew labored, but the strength in his hands never faltered. Finally, he broke through the water's surface, carrying me with him. With the assistance of others, he pulled me back onto the yacht's deck. I was soaking wet, gasping for air, my body trembling uncontrollably. Every breath felt like a knife tearing through my throat, unbearably painful. Before I completely lost consciousness, I saw that the person who had saved me was Louise's uncle, Ethan. Then everything went black as I passed out. When I woke up again, I found myself lying in a familiar bedroom. I slowly opened my eyes, struggling to piece together my thoughts, when Sandra, the housekeeper, hurried into the room. She exclaimed excitedly, "Miss, you're finally awake. You've been unconscious for 10 whole days." And everyone was so worried. I coughed lightly, my throat dry and hoarse. "Sandra, in these past few days, has anything happened? Did Luis come looking for me?" Sandra frowned, hesitating before saying, "Miss, his grandfather came by." I'm not sure what was said, but the master was very upset with him. "And Luis came again today. He's in the living room talking to the master right now." A sense of unease crept into my heart. I dragged my weak body toward the living room. Before I even entered, I heard Luis's voice. "Uncle, you know Selena's current condition. Even if she doesn't donate her bone marrow, her body won't recover fully. Why not do a good deed and accumulate some virtue? Once the surgery is done, I'll arrange for the best doctors to care for her. I'll ensure her health and offer your family substantial compensation." In my past life, after the surgery, I suffered constant pain and sought treatment everywhere to no avail. Luis didn't care for me at all, even despising me because I couldn't conceive. I never thought that in this life. He still wouldn't let me go. My father's voice trembled with anger. "Selena hasn't even woken up, and you're already after her bone marrow? What do you take my daughter for? Don't think I don't know the truth. If you hadn't pushed her, she wouldn't have fallen into the sea." Luis remained expressionless. Lara's condition was critical at the time. I only wanted to save her. It wasn't intentional. Besides, Selena and I had already agreed if she donated her bone marrow to Lara, I would propose to her. Why would I harm her? Before my father could respond, I strode into the living room, staring coldly at Luis. When did I ever agree to that? Seeing me, a flicker of frustration flashed in Luis's eyes. He barked angrily. "Selena, will you only be happy if Lara dies? If you refuse to donate your bone marrow, we'll call off the engagement." His tone carried a hint of threat. I let out a cold laugh. "When did I ever say I wanted to marry you? The person I'm marrying is your uncle, Ethan." Chapter 4. Luis froze, his face full of disbelief. After a moment, he questioned, "What did you just say? You're betraying me?" I sneered. "Luis, you're truly skilled at twisting the truth. From the moment you gave our token of love to Lara, from the times you schemed and hurt me for her, our bond was already broken." My father stepped forward, shouting at Luis with fury. "Selena and Ethan's marriage was arranged long ago by me and your grandfather. The wedding is set for a month from now. Who are you to interfere?" Luis was stunned at first, then burst into a shrill, mocking laugh. "You all conspired to deceive me? That cold, heartless uncle of mine? How could he marry a woman he doesn't even love?" Seeing that none of us responded to his words, Luis turned to me, his eyes filled with urgency, seeking confirmation. Before he could speak, the ringtone of a specific call interrupted him. The familiar sound instantly told me it was Lara calling. Whatever she said on the other end of the line made Luis's face darken further. When he hung up, he glared at me with venom. "Selena, Don't think you can deceive me with lies. One way or another, your bone marrow will end up saving Lara." With that ominous warning, he spun on his heel and stormed out. After Luis's figure disappeared through the door, my father let out a weary sigh. "That boy has doted on Lara ever since he saved her from those thugs. I warned you to keep an eye on him, but you swore he would never betray you. If it weren't for his grandfather's sake, I would have taught him a harsh lesson long ago. If he dares to cause trouble again, don't blame me for being merciless." Pausing, my father added, "Ethan may be aloof and reserved, but his standing in the family far surpasses Luis. He saved your life, and you should thank him properly." I nodded. "I understand, Dad. To be honest, I never expected Ethan to be the one to save me. In my memories, he was like a distant, cold star, commanding respect but impossible to approach." Dragging my still weak body, I freshened up and left for Ethan's villa. On the way, my thoughts were a tangled mess. In the past, I always followed Luis in calling him Uncle Ethan, but now, with my status having changed, I found it hard to adjust. When I arrived at the villa, I pressed the doorbell, and my heartbeat quickened involuntarily. The door opened slowly, and Ethan appeared before me. His deep-set eyes still carried a cold sternness, his posture upright like a towering pine tree. I opened my mouth, hesitated for a moment, and softly said, "Uncle, I came to see you." As soon as the words escaped, I regretted them, a faint blush creeping onto my face. Ethan was momentarily stunned. Then, the corners of his mouth seemed to twitch slightly in a subtle smile as he stepped aside to let me in. "How's your health?" he asked, his voice still cool, but there was an almost imperceptible concern in his gaze. "I'm much better now. Thank you, Uncle, for your care," I replied while following him into the house. The faint aroma of tea lingered in the air of the living room, which was furnished simply yet exuded elegance. "Have a seat," he said, gesturing for me to sit on the sofa. He took a seat across from me. His gaze rested on me, as if scrutinizing something. Under his steady gaze, I felt a bit uneasy, lowering my head slightly, my hands unconsciously twisting the hem of my shirt. "Why did you come to see me today?" He broke the silence first. I lifted my head, mustering my courage, and said, "Uncle, I came to thank you for saving my life. If it weren't for you, I might have." He waved his hand, cutting me off, leaning forward slightly, his eyes filled with heat and mischief. "My fiancé, are you sure you want to remain this distant and polite with me?" He deliberately elongated the last syllable, his deep voice stirring something wild within me. Chapter 5. My face burned hot, and I instinctively tried to turn away, but he gently held my chin, leaving me unable to move. Under his intense gaze, I felt completely flustered. After mumbling a few awkward responses, I hurriedly excused myself and left. On the way back, my mind was filled with confusion. Why did Ethan seem so different today? His uncharacteristically intimate actions and affectionate words echoed repeatedly in my mind. I shook my head, trying to clear the chaotic thoughts. No matter what, since the wedding date was set, I should focus entirely on preparing for the ceremony. During this time, Luis was completely preoccupied with Lara and had no energy to bother me. Before I knew it, the wedding day arrived. The day of the wedding dawned bright and beautiful, dressed in a top-tier custom wedding gown by a renowned designer. I waited in the dressing room for the ceremony to begin. Suddenly, the door creaked open. I assumed it was the makeup artist returning to touch up my makeup, but when I looked up, I saw Luis walking in, his face filled with urgency. He quickly shut the door, sealing off the noise from outside. "How can you really marry my uncle? Are you doing this just to spite me? If you agree to save Lara, I'll marry you. Don't you believe me?" Luis walked up to me, lowering his voice as he demanded answers. Looking at him, I felt nothing but a sense of absurdity and amusement. "Luis, don't you understand yet? I stopped loving you a long time ago." I stood up, putting distance between us. Seeing my resolute stance, Luis's face twisted with anger. He suddenly grabbed my wrist tightly. "I won't allow you to betray me." I struggled with all my strength, trying to free myself. In the midst of our struggle, his elbow accidentally hit a nearby vase, shattering it into pieces with a sharp, jarring sound. Luis paid no attention to the mess, continuing to grip my wrist. His eyes filled with obsession. "Selena, you can't marry anyone else. You belong to me." I pried at his fingers, shouting angrily, "Luis, stop this madness. We're over." As I resisted with all my might, the door suddenly burst open. Ethan entered like a cold gust of wind, his gaze icy and penetrating. He strode forward and forcefully shoved Luis aside. Without hesitation, Ethan's fist shot forward, landing a heavy blow on Luis's face. Luis stumbled to the ground from the unexpected attack. But Ethan didn't stop there. He stepped forward, grabbed Luis by the collar, and spoke in a low, menacing voice, "If you dare cause trouble again, I won't let you off easily." After releasing him, Ethan let Luis go, and Luis scrambled to his feet, fleeing in embarrassment. Ethan then turned to me, his previously frosty gaze softening into infinite warmth. He gently cupped my face, carefully checking if I was hurt. "Don't be afraid. With me here, he will never harm you again." I smiled and nodded. The soft strains of wedding music began to play. Holding onto Ethan's arm, I stepped onto the flower-strewn aisle. Guests on both sides sent us their warm blessings with smiles, as Ethan and I exchanged rings under the witness of all. Then, amidst the enthusiastic applause and cheers, we drank the ceremonial wedding wine together. When the wedding ended, Ethan led me to the bridal chamber. The room was filled with the faint fragrance of flowers and a subtly romantic atmosphere. Rose petals were scattered across the bed, creating a sea of vibrant red blooms. He gently pulled me to sit on the edge of the bed, his voice low and magnetic. "Selena, you know, I've had feelings for you for a long time." Chapter 6. I froze, utterly surprised. "Huh? How could you?" Ethan gently held my hand, his voice tender and filled with emotion. "Selena, do you remember the eerie forest near my family's old estate from when we were children?" I looked at him in astonishment as he continued. "Though I was born late to my father, cherished and deeply loved, that very favoritism drew jealousy and resentment from others. One day, a few of my cousins tricked me into going deep into the forest. They hurled cruel words at me, calling me a burden to the family. Then, in their madness, they tied me to a tree, placed a wasp's nest right in front of me, and walked away. The wasps buzzed incessantly, their wings a menacing hum as they swarmed around me. I was terrified, utterly helpless. Just when I thought I wouldn't make it out alive, you appeared, swinging a branch. You drove the wasps away. Even as their stingers left your arms red and swollen, you endured the pain, using your young but determined voice to scare them off, and hurriedly untied me. In that moment, you became the only light in my dark world." I tried to recall the memory, then slowly spoke. "I think I remember. I overheard them saying something about taking you to the forest and mentioning a surprise and hiding. I thought they were playing hide-and-seek with you. I decided I'd sneak after them and scare everyone by popping out of hiding. So I quietly followed you all into the forest. But when I saw you tied to the tree with the wasps swarming around, I realized it wasn't a game. They were trying to hurt you. I was so scared. But somehow, I found the courage to save you." I never expected that such a small action from back then would be something Ethan remembered so vividly. To me, it was just one of many childhood memories, blurred over time as the years passed. But to him, it was like an eternal, unyielding light in his life. "You don't mean to say you started liking me from that moment, do you?" I asked, my cheeks flushing slightly as my heartbeat quickened. Ethan looked at me, his voice soft but firm. "I'm not sure when it started. I just know that ever since then, you've been in my heart." I quietly watched your every smile, your every tear, and the emotions I didn't understand at first slowly grew into something profound. Later, when I realized my feelings for you, you were already with Luis. I had no choice but to bury them deep inside. But fate has finally smiled on me, giving me this chance to protect you and cherish the love I've held onto for so many years. As I listened to Ethan's heartfelt confession, my heart raced uncontrollably, my cheeks burning hot. The next moment, his lips gently pressed against mine, filled with an undeniable passion and affection. I widened my eyes, my heart leaping into my throat. After a brief moment of surprise, I gradually gave in to the warmth of his love, closing my eyes and responding to his kiss. At this moment, everything around me seemed to pause. Chapter 7. The next morning, Ethan got up early and carefully prepared breakfast for me. He arranged the delicate dishes neatly on the table and thoughtfully placed a bouquet of my favorite yellow roses in a vase. I walked out of the bedroom, still half asleep, and froze at the sight before me. Ethan looked up at me, his usual stern gaze now filled with warmth and tenderness. "Good morning, my wife. You're awake." I nodded and sat down at the dining table. I couldn't help but marvel inwardly. Ethan was clearly warm and attentive, yet he always hid his softer side so deeply that people often mistook him as aloof and cold. After breakfast, Ethan mysteriously said he wanted to take me somewhere. The car slowly drove into a tranquil countryside area, stopping in front of a house surrounded by blooming flowers. When I finally saw the villa clearly, I was speechless with shock. The design was identical to the house from the Crayon Shin-chan cartoon I had loved as a child. It was as if the house had been brought directly from the animation into reality. "Selena, when you were a child, you said you wanted to live in Shin-chan's house. So, I had this place built to match that design exactly. I hope you like it." Tears instantly welled up in my eyes. I once thought I had been sincere with Luis, yet he tried to take my bone marrow without a second thought. But Ethan, just because of an offhand comment I made as a child, went to great lengths to make this dream come true for me. If it weren't for this second chance, I might never have known the purity of his love. At that thought, tears streamed down my face uncontrollably. Ethan gently pulled me into his arms, resting his chin on the top of my head as he spoke softly. "From now on, I won't let you endure even the slightest grievance. This house is your very own playground. Whenever you feel like it, you can come here and relive the innocence of childhood." From that day forward, Ethan stayed by my side every day. He taught me many business skills, helping me manage my company more effectively. We traveled together, riding horses on the grasslands, embracing on mountaintops as we watched the sunrise. Our married life turned out to be even more beautiful and fulfilling than I could have imagined. That afternoon, Ethan and I were in the study organizing our travel photos when the doorbell suddenly rang. A moment later, the butler rushed in, panicked. "Sir, young Master Luis is outside causing a commotion, demanding to see the madam. We've tried to stop him, but he won't listen." I froze. After the fiasco Luis caused at the wedding, his grandfather had confined him to house arrest. I didn't expect him to have the audacity to show up here now. He didn't even love me, so why did he insist on disrupting my life? Thinking this, a look of annoyance crossed my face. Ethan gently patted my hand to comfort me. "Don't worry, I'm here." With that, he led me calmly toward the door. Chapter 8. The moment I saw Luis, I was taken aback by his appearance. His clothes were wrinkled, his hair no longer meticulously styled, and he looked utterly disheveled. But as soon as he saw me, his eyes lit up instantly. "Selena, come with me," he said. The butler quickly stepped forward to block him, his tone firm and righteous. "Madam is already married to our master. Why would she leave with you?" Luis acted as if he hadn't heard, his eyes fixed intently on me. "Selena, weren't you the one who loved me the most? If you agree to leave with me, I'll marry you." I thought his behavior was absurd. I looked at him and said, "I'm your aunt now. Stop saying such ridiculous things." Luis, however, wouldn't relent and raised his voice. "We were together for 5 years. How can you just let it go like that? You married my uncle to spite me. Don't you know he's notorious in the business world for his ruthless tactics? Aren't you afraid he'll use you and then discard you once he's done?" As he spoke, he pulled out the bracelet that had once been my grandmother's heirloom. "Look, I've taken back our token of love. Come with me." When he finished speaking, I released Ethan's hand and walked straight toward Luis. Seeing this, Luis's face lit up with excitement, and he smiled widely. "Selena, I knew you still loved me." Before he could finish his sentence, I raised my hand and slapped him with all the strength I could muster. The sound was sharp and resounding. His face turned to the side from the force, a bright red handprint instantly appearing on his left cheek. I glared at him fiercely, my eyes blazing, and said each word slowly and clearly. "Luis, You're right, we were together for 5 years. But you chose another woman over me, tried to take my bone marrow, and pushed me into the sea, intending to kill me. Luis's face went pale. He stammered, trying to explain. Selena, I was blinded by Lara. She told me she had a blood disease and that only you could save her. I lost my head and couldn't bear to watch her die. But I didn't think about your feelings. After you left, I saw her true colors. She used the money I gave her for treatment to support another man. I saw her being intimate with him in her hospital room. It wasn't until that moment that I realized how foolish I was to hurt you for her. I regret it. Selena, please, give me another chance. At this point, Ethan stepped forward, grabbed Luis's wrist firmly, and effortlessly took the bracelet from him. Turning to me, Ethan spoke gently. My love, I'll find the finest craftsman to cleanse the stain of its defilement before returning it to you. Then, he turned back to Luis, his tone cold and unyielding. If you dare come near my wife again, I won't hesitate to have the family strip you of your name and ensure you'll never have a place in the business world. Hearing Ethan's warning, Luis's face filled with unwillingness and anger. He glared at Ethan, his teeth clenched. Uncle, your tactics in the business world may be formidable, but I won't give in so easily. You took Selena from me, and I'll remember this. With that, he stormed off, his steps filled with humiliation and defeat. Chapter 9. From that moment on, the resentment in Luis's heart grew like wild weeds, spiraling out of control. He began secretly investigating Ethan's business partnerships, attempting to find leverage to sabotage Ethan's projects. He even spread false rumors about Ethan on social media, stirring up doubt among uninformed minor shareholders. At the same time, he started sending me photos and love letters from when we were together, apologizing profusely and trying to reignite my feelings for him. Luis also orchestrated coincidences in places I frequented, begging me each time to give him another chance. One day, as I was leaving a shopping mall and heading toward my car, Luis suddenly appeared out of nowhere. His eyes were bloodshot, his expression a chaotic mix of desperation and pleading. Grabbing my arm urgently, he said, Selena, Lara's blood disease was fake. She bribed the doctor I brought in to fabricate her medical records and test results. That time I saved her, it was all part of her plan. She knew my identity from the start and got close to me on purpose for my family's wealth and power. She knew how much I loved you, so she schemed to frame you, making me misunderstand and turn against you. We were both deceived. I stood there, staring at him, feeling nothing but a mix of mockery and pity. Shaking his hand off forcefully, I said coldly, Luis, even now, you're still trying to shift the blame onto others, whether Lara manipulated you or not. It was you who pushed me into the sea. It was you who tried to take my bone marrow. Those wounds were real, and no excuse of being deceived will erase them. Stop lying to yourself, and stop bothering me. It's over between us. I'm your aunt now. Luis, seeing my unwavering stance, descended further into madness. He began anonymously leaking some internal business information about Ethan's company online. Although it didn't cause irreparable damage, it created a media frenzy and triggered an investigation into Ethan's business. Ethan remained calm and composed. He quickly organized a professional crisis management team to clarify the misinformation, restoring confidence among partners and clients. On the other hand, Ethan secretly launched a counter-investigation into Luis. Finally, Ethan uncovered solid evidence of Luis's collusion with the illegal sources of leaked information. He handed this evidence over to the police. Luis was arrested and charged with commercial crimes. His family completely severed ties with him. In prison, Luis endured cold treatment and harsh conditions. His once glorious life was reduced to endless regret and despair. As for Lara, without Luis's protection, she became a pariah, despised and hunted by everyone. She was wanted by the police for bribing doctors to forge medical records, defrauding Luis of money, and orchestrating schemes to harm me in order to obtain my bone marrow. To evade capture, she fled from place to place. Her former friends, who had once clung to her for her connections, now avoided her like the plague. Her assets were frozen, leaving her penniless and haggard. In the end, during a police raid, she fled in desperation into an abandoned warehouse. The warehouse, long neglected, was in disrepair. As she struggled and ran, a rotten beam came loose and fell, striking her directly. She collapsed in a pool of blood, her life ending in agony and despair, her pursuit of wealth and power through deceit and crime bringing about her tragic downfall. Chapter 10. After learning of Luis and Lara's fates, I sat alone on a garden bench for a long time. Memories of the past with Luis resurfaced, the pain of betrayal and harm still vivid. And Lara. Though her greed and ruthless actions were despicable, she was, in the end, a pitiful person consumed by her desires. While I was lost in my thoughts, Ethan walked over and sat beside me. He said, "My love, I had a dream just now. In the dream, you married Luis. He deceived you into donating your bone marrow to Lara. Your health deteriorated. You were tied to daily doses of herbal medicine, and you lost the ability to have children. You suffered terribly. When I finally learned the truth, it was too late. I could only watch helplessly as you passed away. I hated my own helplessness, hated the cruelty of fate. I knelt on a lonely mountaintop, praying fervently with all my remaining blessings, with every ounce of reverence and sincerity I could offer, begging the heavens to give you another chance at life." Hearing this, a storm of emotions rose within me, and tears began streaming uncontrollably. So it was his deep love that moved the heavens and gave me this chance to be reborn. I held him tightly, my voice trembling as I said, "Husband, thank you. You've done so much for me, and I didn't even know." Ethan hugged me even tighter, as if trying to embed me into his very being. His heartbeat was steady and strong. Exhaling softly, he whispered, "My love, thank goodness it was only a dream. Now you're here with me, real and safe. I will protect you for the rest of my life." In his arms, I sobbed quietly, my emotions a tangled mix of gratitude and love. He thought it was just a dream, but I knew it was a painful memory from my past life. His love for me had transcended life and death, spanning 2 lifetimes, and in this life, he stood steadfastly by my side, giving me endless love and unwavering support. To me, he had truly protected me across both lifetimes. How fortunate I was to be loved by someone like him. From that day forward, our lives became increasingly peaceful and happy. Every morning, Ethan would carefully prepare breakfast for me, creating exquisite dishes that perfectly suited my tastes. Watching me eat with satisfaction, he would smile with tenderness and doting affection. After breakfast, we would head to the office together. In my work, through my own abilities and efforts, I managed to lead my family's company to great success. In our free time, we'd curl up on the couch, chatting about amusing stories from work or planning our next trip. We supported and complimented each other, our days brimming with happiness. One ordinary workday, the company suddenly buzzed with excitement. The reason? A trending topic that had gone viral. The cold-faced CEO is actually a wife-doting maniac. It turned out that earlier that morning, Ethan had gently knelt to tie my shoelaces outside the office. An employee had captured the moment and shared it in a group chat. And from there, it spread online. When Ethan saw the trending post, instead of getting angry, the corners of his mouth lifted into a playful smirk, his eyes sparkling with pride. He pulled me into his arms and whispered in my ear, "I can't wait for the whole world to know how much I adore you. For them to know you're my wife." A wave of warmth surged through me. I lifted my head and kissed him. After a long moment, I gently pushed him back, looking into his eyes, and said with heartfelt sincerity, "This life and the next, through every storm, I'll never leave you."